simple. So check your chat box. I will share it again. Just give me a second. So if you check your chat box, you'll see the link for today's section. So thank you all for coming early. So I will just start with the presentation right about now. Okay. So good day, everyone. Good day, good evening, good afternoon, morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another session brought to you by UrBizEdge. I know today is the World Cup final and you guys still made it here, so thank you very much. So for today's session, we're having data transformation using Azure Databricks, and it's going to be presented by myself, Temidayo Omoniyi. So my company, which I work for, UrBizEdge. So I registered Microsoft Excel Consulting, Financial Modeling, Business Intelligence, Data Analysis, and Enterprise Solution firm in Nigeria. We specialize in helping companies and high-value professionals be on top of their business data. Also, we're the developer of some different tools which you can find on the Microsoft Store, such as the Nigerian Finance Market Analysis tool, which you can find on Microsoft Office Store. Also, the developer of the Nigerian Stock Analysis Dashboard and so many other software products which use for finance and data manipulation. As you all know, also a training company in Lagos, Nigeria. So this is our calendar for our upcoming training. So this is like we're done for the training for the year, so till next year. So on the 13th of January, we're having big data analysis, Power Query, Power Pivot, and also VBA. So that's what some of you that are interested in automation using Microsoft Excel. Also on the 13th of that same January, we'll be having in-depth Excel training, executive dashboard, and business data analysis. On the 19th of January, which is going to be on a Thursday, we're having business intelligence and dashboard using Microsoft Power BI. So I'll give you a brief description about myself, Temidayo. So I'm a Microsoft certified data analyst with over 3 years combined experience. I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer who have passion in sharing of knowledge, helping and mentoring young data analysts. I also develop custom solutions on Microsoft Office. I enjoy creative educative content on UrBizEdge YouTube channel and other platforms. So you can basically find me on Microsoft Forum. I enjoy writing code. I also enjoy automation and automating different processes using Microsoft Power Automate. So without further ado, I'll go right into this section. So I want to confirm if everyone can hear me perfectly well. So just give me a second. So for today's section, we're doing data transformation using Azure Databricks, right? So let me just share my entire screen this time around. I guess everyone can see my screen, right? Okay. So the first thing I'll just do a little bit of presentation and explanation of what I plan doing for today. So I'll open my Jupyter notebook, right? So we'll just start with presentation and explanation. I'm sure everyone here is into data engineering, into using of machine learning, and also using of Python. So I'll start by explaining what is PySpark actually. So the Apache Spark is a Python API for Apache Spark, and it's an open source distributed computing platform, a collection of tools for real-time and massive data processing. Apache Spark is said to be a computational engine that handles big data set by processing them concurrently or in batch. So when something processes concurrently, let me say simultaneously, or a batch which is different batch, that's segment by segment. So PySpark was created to facilitate the integration of Python and Spark, which is written in Scala. PySpark makes use of PJ library, which assists the interaction and relies on distribution data, in addition to PySpark. So basically, PySpark is just a combination of both Python and Spark. So that gives you PySpark. So for PySpark, it has some nice libraries such as the PySpark SQL. So for some of you that are very comfortable writing SQL programming language, you're very comfortable writing SQL and the rest, PySpark will be your best bet. It also has a library called MLlib, which is used for people that uses a lot of machine learning. So it helps you to do machine learning wrapping around the PySpark and Spark itself. It also has what they call the graph frame. So a graph frame processes toolkits that offers a collection of API for quickly and effective doing of graph analysis using Spark or and PySpark SQL. It is just for distributed computing that is quick. So if you want to do some further learning, you can also go through this link over here, right? I've given some link for some further learning. Also, what I'm showing you, I've given, if you check the chat box, you see the documentation in the chat box. You can download it from my GitHub link. So what is a Databricks? So Databricks is basically a cloud-based data engineering tool that is widely used by companies to process and analyze and transform massive amounts of data and explore data. Large volume of data are processed and transformed using Databricks, and machine learning model can be explored in this same environment. So, for some of you bigger organizations use a lot of Databricks for data manipulation, data transformation. That's if your data is in a large scale. So, you use a lot of Databricks. So now, our focus of today, which is the Azure Databricks itself. So the Azure Databricks is a data analytic platform optimized for the Microsoft Azure cloud services. So that's the concept of Azure Databricks. So we have Databricks, which is a cloud-based engineering tool. We also have the Azure Databricks, which is optimized for Microsoft Azure cloud platform. So some of you that are into Microsoft Azure, we also have GCP Databricks, we also have AWS Databricks. So for today's session, I'm talking about the Azure Databricks. So three environments are available in Azure Databricks, which is the Databricks for SQL, Databricks for data science and data engineering, Databricks also for machine learning. So for SQL, that's for SQL. For some of you that want to query your data, you can use the Azure Databricks. For some of you that do data science, that's for predictive model and also data engineering for ETL, and also building of pipelines like extract, transform, and load. You can also use the Azure data engineering environment, and also have the Databricks for machine learning. For some of you that used to things like linear regression, random forest classification, and the rest, or k-nearest neighbors, you can also use the Azure machine learning environment. I've also dropped link to some further studies if you want to learn further. So there's also link for further studies over here, right? So this is basically the architecture of Azure Databricks, right? So it goes with the whole concept of ETL, which stands for extract, transform, and load. So the extract means how do you ingest the data? So for Azure Databricks, right, we basically mount data source on the Azure Databricks. So it's what for the Azure Databricks, can collect data from both Azure Data Factory, from Azure Lake, Azure Data Lake. Most time I use Gen 2, Azure Blob Storage, Azure Event Hub, Azure Cosmos DB. You can collect from multiple sources, also from Redshift and also other containers. So when I get the data, that's for my extract. How did I ingest my data? So the step 2, which is the C, which is the transform. So basically, transform basically means data cleaning. It's just a fancy name. Data transformation. It's still the same thing as data cleaning. So the data cleaning is done in where? In my Azure Databricks here. So at the final step, which is my output. But let me just explain the data transformation aspect. For data transformation aspect, one beautiful thing about Azure is that it's Databricks Azure. It lets you write data transformation using Python language like PySpark. You can use things like SQL. You can use things like Scala. You can use things like Java and Arrow also. If you are very good with Arrow, so you can use things like Arrow also in your Databricks. And after you're done with your transformation, the last step is your load. So where do you load your data to? So most times you can load your data into a Azure warehouse. Most times people use Azure Synapse Analytics for the data warehouse modeling and the rest. Also, you can also load it to a non-structured storage such as the data lake Gen 2 and also blob storage, anyone. And also you can also connect your Power BI to either Databricks or also to your Azure Data Lake Gen 2. So I'll scroll down a little bit. So let's talk about the data factory itself. So because I'll be using data factory also for this section. So I'm also a very big fan of data factory. So Azure Data Factory is a cloud-based services that primarily performs the complete ETL process, which stands for extract, transform, and load process, for ingesting, preparing, and also transforming all your data at scale. The Azure Data Service provides a code-free user interface for simple authorization and single pane glass management. This allows users to build complex ETL processes for transforming data using data flow or other computational services such as HD Insight, Azure Databricks, Azure Synapse Analytics, Azure SQL Database. So one of the beautiful thing about Azure Data Lake is that I can actually do my transformation using things like data flow. So if you're very familiar with things like SSIS, like the way you build your SSIS module from your Microsoft BI, the way you draw, like you are drawing like different flows to like split, to do a conditional split, to do like a lookup, to do like a select. So that's how the whole data flow works. It's more like you pick different flow for transforming your data, and it's written in Scala, right? If you want to transform your data using the um, data flow, you can also use the Azure HD Insights. You can also use the Azure Databricks, and you can also use Azure Synapse Analytics. Anyone you prefer using for your data transformation. So this is going to be the project architecture for today. So this is what to plan doing today, right? First of all, we plan uploading data into our Azure block storage. At the same time, we're going to mount the block storage to our Azure Databricks, both the block storage and also the Azure Data Lake Gen 2. Yeah, we'll perform our transformation in Azure Databricks, and after we're done, we're going to populate the transform data to, we're going to send it back to our Azure Data Lake, and we're going to connect our Power BI to the data lake for visualization purpose. It might look a little bit complex and tricky, but as we go on, I will explain everything. So I also want to give a big shout out to these fellow people that have been doing a lot in the community of Azure for Data. Misha, Adam, Mark. I follow Adam Mark a lot on YouTube. He has a very nice YouTube channel. Chris Nair, I've been following this since my data science time. And Rashid actually has a very nice course on Udemy for ADF, that's Azure Data Factory. And so I want to give a big thumbs up to Microsoft Learn that have actually provided so many materials to learn all of these. And also I've dropped some links to YouTube, Medium, and also some other courses I'm actually taking online to learn all of these, such as PySpark, Adam, Waffle Studio, Azure, and some other one. Okay, so let me check if there's any question before I start fully. Okay, I guess no question. So if you have any question, you can put it in the chat box. So let's start fully. So let me just off my camera so I won't have any distraction. Okay, so I'll first show you how to do this in Jupyter Notebook. So I'm using a Jupyter Notebook first of all. So all what I'm doing today, I've already dropped the link on my GitHub repo. So this is the GitHub repo for everything I'll be doing today. You can see there's a code folder over here. So this contains all the code I'll be using for today. And also the data, all the data I'll be using for today is also here. So for some of you that might be interested, I want to follow along with me. I'll copy the link again and I'll send to everyone in the chat box once more. So you can just copy the link and we can go along together. Okay. So I'll start fully now. So the first thing you need to do, you need to install Spark. So one of the reasons I'm going to start with Spark is that the programming language used in Azure Databricks is actually Spark. The Python programming language is Spark. So if you're very conversant with using things like pandas, it will be a walkover for you. So for you to install Spark, you have to do you have to do a pip install, right? So sometimes it might install directly and it might not work. So the issue might be that you need to install it in a virtual environment. So what I mean by virtual environment, so like right now I'm using a virtual environment. So if I open my Anaconda, right? So this is my command prompt, Anaconda command prompt. So if I type Python, right, it gives me the whole Jupyter environment itself, the whole Python environment. But this is the base, this is Anaconda base environment. I want to use another virtual environment. So let me just exit this, right? And I'll activate another environment. So I have another environment called TensorFlow. Activate TensorFlow 3.10. Okay. And you can see, right? You can see the first one was showing was a base. Now this one is showing what TensorFlow. This is my virtual environment. So if I type Python, right? So you can see that there's a difference now, right? This is a virtual environment. This was a base environment. So for this session, if you try installing PySpark and it doesn't work on your local machine, it's either you need to open a virtual environment to be able to use it properly. So what I need to do now, I need to import some necessary library. I've already installed my PySpark. It's actually like, I think it's up close to like 700 or something MB. So it takes a little bit of time, but if your internet is very fast, you don't have issue. So let me just import some. Let me first clear all of this. So just clear all. Okay, let me clear all my output. Okay, cool. So let me import some necessary libraries, right? So I've already written all the code down because I don't start running the code from scratch. Because from Jupyter Notebook, we'll still go to Databricks and we'll still go to Azure Data Factory. So we have a lot of things to do today. So I don't really waste time writing the code. So I've already written the code out for everyone. You can go to the GitHub link and copy the code. And so I'll run the first one by pressing Shift Enter. So I want to import some libraries such as my PySpark, also Pandas, and also Spark SQL import section, right? So when you've imported the necessary library, you have to create a Spark library. I also have to give this the library a name. So the name of my app is called tutorial, right? I'm giving it a tutorial. The name of the app is called tutorial. So if I run this, right, it's going to take a little bit of time, but it's going to run. Just give some minutes. Okay, so let's check now. So it has run for now. Press Shift Enter. So if you're doing this for the first time, it might take a little bit of time. But if you have done it concurrently, you won't have much time to go very fast. So it's tell me this is the version of my PySpark I'm using. So I'm using version 3.13. And it's a local, I'm actually installed everything. And the app name is, but let's see first, I'm coming. Okay, let's read it from the Spark itself. Let's see how it works first. So if I say df spark.read. So it is the same way you read. I don't know why that was not working actually. But let's run this from here first of all. Okay, so let's give it a minute. Okay, so it was run, right? So this is just a Spark one. I don't know why the pandas one was not run. I don't know. I think I imported pandas. I imported pandas. Okay, so let's continue. So I said spark.read.csv. But if I was reading it with pandas, I would have said what? Something like df equals to pd.read underscore csv, right? And I'll put the directory. I'll put my directory over here, right? But for Spark, it's different. This one is to show what spark.read.csv. But it was pandas to be pd.read underscore csv, right? So I added the file name and also added two things here, which is the header. So I made header true. What means that it's going to make first role as my header. I also put was IFA schema true. So it's going to put the correct schema for each of the data. So if I run this now, let's see the schema itself. I can see this is the entire data. You can see that there's some issues with this data, right? I can see I have order number. So the print schema gives you the entire column and gives you the data type of each of the entire column. Like I say, I have my order number, which is the first column, is an integer. My order date is shown as an integer, which is meant to be a date. My country is a string, which is correct. Okay. My pie flavor is actually a string. My quantity is an integer. Okay, correct. My price is an integer. My amount sold is an integer, also correct. My slice or wholesale is actually a string. My pre-order or is also a string. Okay. Organic is also a string. So you can see this from all this side here. It's actually data that are not needed, right? So what I mean by that, if I open the folder, let's see the folder itself. So it's what I'm talking about. So if I go to data set, so I'm using big data CSV, this one over here. So if I open this, okay, so I'm trying to open it. Okay, so this is the data itself, right? So why it's giving me issue is this place here. You can see that I actually have some columns which I don't need. This column, I don't need all these columns. I have to what? I have to remove all these columns. So from this side down, to this side. So from K down to the right hand side. I don't need all those columns. So what I will do now, I'll come back here. And I see these are the columns I don't need. Guys, showing me what? It's just showing me the column number, which is what? 10, 11, 12, and co. So let's just see the entire column itself. So I'll say, to see the entire column, just like you're using your pandas, you say the variable name, which is what? df spark underscore 2 dot columns, right? It's going to give me all my columns. So I can see all the columns, right? I can see the columns I don't want. Okay, so I can also change the data type also. Remember that the order data show me as a what? As a integer. It's going to be a date time or timestamp, anyone you prefer calling it. So I'll just run this. Okay, cool. So the amount is actually correct. The price is also correct. So I didn't have anything with that. So I'll just run this also again. So the order date has changed down to what? Date. Okay. So now to drop all those columns I don't need, you can see there's some columns I don't need, which is from column 25 to column C10, right? So I have to drop all of these. So shift enter, right? So let's check it again. I'll say shift run again. I can see now I've dropped all the column. If I want my sigma, you can see now, right? I'm having the appropriate column now. All those other columns that were giving me an error that I don't need, I've actually removed it. So you can actually do that using your Power Query. I say, okay, drop column. So it's the same thing I'm actually doing with my PySpark, right? I can also change some column names like, you can see this one show me what pi underscore flavor 3. So the issue with this now, if I take it to to data frame and I'm running a SQL on it, it will be giving me an error. So I have to remove the space and also I have to change the name also. So I can just shift run around this, okay? I say, okay, let's see the columns again. So now you can see I've changed it now from pi flavor 3. Show me as what now? Pi flavor. From quantity, show me as what? Quantity only. So that's just some data cleaning we're just doing. This is just introduction to PySpark. I've not done the actual work for today. So let's see. So select means I want to see a particular column. So I said what? df.select open bracket pi flavor. So I only want to see the pi flavor. So if I was doing this on pandas, I would have said what? .ed. Ed gives you what? The first 5 rows. It's still the same thing too with PySpark. Just say .show, right? So it's only shows you the first 20 rows, right? So I said .show. You don't show me everything. This is the entire data itself. Okay, I think I'm having issue with the dates. Okay, I think I'll fix that later, but let's just continue because of time, right? Okay, so now let's now do some filtering. Let's say, for instance, now for the amount sold, I want to see the amount for anything that is greater than 30,000, right? So I'll say what? The variable name, which is what? df underscore spicepark underscore 2 dot filter, right? open bracket, what the variable name, and I put my column. The column which I want to filter for is what amount sold must be what greater than or equals to what 30,000, and I click on show. And you can see the amount sold now. When I say something is greater than equals to greater or equals to 30,000, means it's going to start from 30,000 upwards. It's giving me everything from 30,000 upwards, right? So I'm just basically filtering. Let's do another one. Let's say, okay, I want to do it between a range now. I want to between a range of what 7,000 to 9,000. So in let's take for instance in Excel, right? You're doing between is going to be what greater than or equals to the value and less than or equals to the value, right? So and usually use and for range between the values. So that's what I actually did. So I said, okay, let's filter for the price now. I want to get a range between what for price, anything between 7,000 towards 9,000, right? So I've actually done the code over here. So that's df.filter. I've written the whole code here, right? And the variable that's between these two. And I said, okay, the column, I want to see just 3 columns, right? That's the select. I said, okay, I want to see the country column, the pie flavor, and also the amount sold, the show, right? So if I run this should give only 3 columns, right? Which is what country, pie flavor, and also what amount sold. Are you getting? So that's how you do that. What I mean by that, let's take for instance, now let me show you what I actually did now. Let's say I have an Excel file here. I have different countries now, like let's say I have Algeria, right? I have Algeria to Benin, right? Let's have Algeria. Let's take for instance I have Algeria all 3 here again, right? And so I have different amounts here now. Let's say I have different amounts. I just want to show you something what I actually tried doing here. So I have different amounts here now. So 1 exponential 6, 1 exponential 9. Okay. So just give me a second. And I also have quantity. So I have a quantity between let's say between 20 to 100, right? So what I'm trying to do now, let's say, and I have zone. So I'll this on zone. So this one say southwest, southwest, northeast, northwest. Let's say south south. So what I actually did in this place, and that I want to do here now in Excel. So you understand what I'm trying to achieve now. So I would say this place is zone, this country, this quantity, so this price, and what this what's quantity, right? So what I'm trying to achieve now, say okay, I want to filter for what only the zone, which is what southwest. And I want to see 3 column, which is what country, price, and quantity. So I can do what they call equals to what filter, right? The same thing I did. I'll say filter. I'll select this entire zone, right? I want to see the only zone I want to see is what is southwest. So I like all of these, right? Equals to what southwest. And at the same time, I don't want to see 3 columns, which is what country, price, and quantity. I can just come here. I can say, okay, let's say choose column, choose column. So the columns I want to see is just column 2, 3, 4, right? Column 2, 3, 4, enter. So you can see what it's giving me, right? Only what country, price, and quantity. That's the same thing I did here, right? But this one now, it was not using what the select function. You can also do it using SQL. You just put the first 3 columns you want to see, right? So let's just continue. I'll run this also. Let's not say I want to say, okay, for the pie flavor, it should either be apple or cherry. So from the statements, if I'm looking for a categorical data and then the same column, I use an all statement. But all statements in data analysis in general is just a piper sound. So a piper sign, that's a single pipe, right? If you're doing it if you're doing it in what they call it now in SQL, use the or sign. If you're doing it in Excel, use the plus. If you're doing it in Power BI, that's in DAX, use what they call the piper, double piper. But for Python, use also a single pipe sound. And I run this, right? It's going to give me the plot for only what apple and what cherry. It's give only apple and cherry, right? So let's take for instance now to just see only these 3 columns, which is order dates, price, quantity, and amount. So I think the order dates have been for. Let me just delete the order date for here because of I'm not really knowing what the issues with that is for now. So let me just put the top quotes here, okay? I want to see this setting column, which is what price, quantity, and also amount sold. Awesome. It's also the same thing. So I want to do between a range of values 7,000 and the rest, right? If I run this, it's still the same thing, right? Okay, let's now perform like some calculation. You know that to get your amount, so you do what? Price times what? Quantity, right? So let's just do some calculation. I say, okay, I want to create a new column, right? The column name should be what? Total underscore amount sold from column quantity times column what? Price. So after I did, I have to compare the new column and the old column together if they're actually the same thing. So I run this, I can see, right, the new column is here and the old column, you can see that it's actually correct. Also, let's do some aggregates, some group by. So let's do the aggregate of everything first of all. So this gives us the general aggregate of everything, right? So you can see these are the index, and it's giving us the sum aggregate. The aggregate is a what? A sum. So sum of this is actually wrong. I'm going to drop this. Sum of quantities, sum of price, sum of amount sold, right? You do sum of amount sold. Okay. So let's take for instance, I want to update. You can see this pie flavor. It's showing as what? Orders, right? I want to change orders to mango. Let's the way you update in SQL. Like say, okay, update a table by one column or something like that, right? I can come here. So I'll import a variable called regular expression underscore replace. So don't help me to update a value. So I just run this. When I run this, I say, okay, pie flavor. And I can see pie flavor now. It's showing what as mango. Before it was showing what as what? Orders. Now it's mango. So I'm not showing that, okay, these are the things. You can actually use PySpark for data manipulation. I can also do the aggregate of this. Okay, awesome. And also the aggregate of this also. Cool. Right? So I've also filtered for only what? Mango. So I want to see for only mango now. You can see show me only mango. Let's go to the work of today. I've not done the work of today. So let's go to our data break. So open on incognito. Okay, so I'll say my Azure portal. So I'll go to my Azure portal. Okay, so let me just log in. I'm coming. I might be able to be fast because I have less than 30 minutes. It's a 1 hour section. Okay, so I think they send me a authenticator or something. Yeah. Okay, just give me a second. Let me approve it. So I've approved. So if you have any question, you can drop it in the chat box. Okay. Okay, so this is my Azure portal, right? So I need to launch. So in Azure Databricks, you have two types of Azure data. You have two types of Databricks. Sorry, you have the community Databricks, which is free. That means anybody can. It's telling me this is my subscription that remains. Okay, you have the community Databricks, which is free. That means anybody can actually what use it, right? And you also have what the cloud-based one, which is what I mean by cloud-based. I mean the Databricks are using things like Azure to run. You're using things like AWS to run. You're using things like um, GCP, that's Google Cloud Service to run, right? So the difference is that for if I'm using the community version, that's the free version, I can only create one cluster, right? But if I'm using the paid service, I can create multiple cluster and also I can have multiple nodes. What I to do, I to go to my Azure Databricks. So I've already created the Azure Databricks in my Azure portal, right? So I'll click here. It's coming. Okay, so I'll launch my workspace now. So let's give it a couple of minutes. It's going to launch for us. So if you have any question, please drop it in the chat box below. So it's loading. So while this load, let me check if there's any question. Okay, no question. Awesome. Okay, so when you open your Databricks for the first time, this is what pops out, right? So you can select any type you want to use. You can say, okay, I want to do exploratory data analysis, such as using Python or Arrow. I want to build data pipeline using for ETL and streaming purpose. I want to create SQL data dashboard and reports. I want to train model, that's machine learning model, that's ML flow, and also auto ML, or just inspire me. So I want to do I want to be the pipeline actually. So let's click on pipeline. I'll click on finish. Right? Okay. So this is actually how the interface of Azure Databricks look like, right? So you can add a new data. You can this is what they call the workspace. So these are your different workspace. You can see most recent work. You can see data sets. You can also see a cluster, right? So before you start anything in your Azure Databricks, you have to create a cluster. So I've already created a cluster, right? But let me show you how to create a cluster. You go to cluster over here. I think they've changed the name to compute, but it was called cluster. But now it's called compute, right? Also create compute, okay. So this will load. So now this is just the interface, right? So you can see this is the price in here. Show me what 2.5 to 6.7 Databricks unit per hour. So this is just the pricing. So you can also check and know more about pricing. But for me, I'll be using the multi-node. I'll change to a single node because it's just for demo purpose. I'll change to a single node, right? And you can see the runtime. This is just the version, right? So I can use the light. That's the second to the highest version. I can also use the standard version too. I don't want something too big. So I'm using what 14 gig and four um, node type. So you can also change the time. Okay, you can see that it's showing what terminate after 120 minutes without being used. You can change to, let's say, 10 minutes of not being used or 5 minutes. So after every 5 minutes, if you don't use it, it actually what? Okay, sorry, 10 minutes. Where is this? Okay, 10 minutes. Okay, after every 10 minutes and you don't use it, it terminates. But I won't create a cluster because I've actually created a cluster before. I don't need to take time. So let me go back to my cluster here. I actually have a cluster already, so I'll just run this one I've created before because I don't want to create multiple cluster. And I'll say start confirm. So this might take a little bit of time, but it's loading. So when it finish loads, it will give me a checkbox, right? So what I actually want to do now is all the things I did in my Python, my Jupyter notebook, I'll repeat the same thing now in my Azure Databricks. So let's see. I think there's a question. Get to this page, please. Okay. Um. So for this page, right, I actually have an Azure account, right? I have an Azure account. So I have a Azure account. So I've already created a Databricks. So I have database. So I have different resources. So if I go to my um if I go to my Azure portal, I have different resources like I've already created Databricks resource, that's workspace. I have my data lake, I have my blob storage, I have my Azure SQL, I have my virtual environment. I also have so many things I've created, right? Even my Azure Data Flow, Azure Azure Data Factory, and some other things. So what I just did is when I came here, I also went to one I've created. I've already created Azure. So if I search for Databricks now, right? You can see Azure Data. If I click on Azure Databricks, this opens for me, right? So if I want to do it for the first time, just click on create. But since I already have Databricks already, I don't need to create because I've already created before. So I just use the one I've created already. I'll just click on this and it will open. Actually, I don't click on what? Launch. But if you're doing it for the first time, why search for Azure Databricks? Just go to create and you go through the whole process of creating Azure Databricks and everything. But I'm not creating because it's going to take time. So you put your region, your data source, and your subscription you're using. So just close this. Let me check if my stuff has loaded. Okay, this is still loaded. Why is it taking time? It's taking time. It's taking time. Okay. Yeah, the record will be made available. So I think I answered Omotunde's question, right? So while this is running, let's just wait. This is taking time to run. What I actually want to do is I will go to my data set here, right? I'll say get data. So the data I used the other time, which is big data. So this data I use for this part here. The name of the data is called what? It's called big data here, right? So what I want to do, I just want to just drag the data and put it there. But I want to first confirm if my um cluster has finished loading. And this is taking time to load. Why? It's really taking time to load. So as we're going, let's just continue. So let's just wait while it is loading. But what I want to do now is I will just open my data. I'll go to create table and I will drag my data from here, which is my big data. Sorry, this one here. I'll drag it. Why is this opening? I don't want it to open. What I'm trying to do, I want to drag this one down. Okay, cool. I'll come here. I'll drop it here, right? So I'll now say, okay, create a table in notebook, right? So it's going to create a table for me in a notebook. So the issue is the cluster that it has not created. That's why it is wasting time. If the cluster is up, to have worked. So I've gone by now. Create a table for me in a notebook. I'm waiting for the cluster. Okay, yeah, I think the cluster is up. Okay, I think it's up here. Cool. Okay, so when I clicked on create a table for me in the notebook, that's actually opened this table for me, right? And you can see now show me okay, the five parts what? File store table, the big data too, that's the name of the file. The type is the CSV file, right? Infra schema. So you notice something like infra schema is what false. first row header is what? False, right? So if I run this now, I press shift, so it's just the same way you run in Jupyter Notebook, shift enter, right? It's asking me, yeah, attached and run. Yeah, I'm attached to that same cluster. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it's going to run. So I'm also put some new cells. And mind you, I'm using Python programming language. You can see, right? I can actually change it from Python to SQL to Scala to R, or you can change it also. There's another way of changing it. Let's just let this one first run. So it's still running. Okay, awesome. So it ran. Cool. So you can see there's some issue here. It's taking my first row. You can see my first row is giving me what order dates, the order number, order date. So what I want to make first row as an header. You get. So the same way you do it in Power Query, you say use first row as an header. You're going to do the same thing here. You say okay. I'll say if a schema, schema gives you the right data type for each of the columns. So if I'll change it to true, right? First row is header. I'll also say true, right? So I'll run this again. Okay, and you can see it has changed, right? So let's just say I want to check the name of the file variable is called df. So I say df dot columns. If I run this, so you can see the same issue I had the other time. So I'll do the same cleaning process all over again. I'll say df dot print schema, right? Okay, so you can see this the schema. But I don't want to waste time. This is what I'll do now. I'll just trash this. I think I've already done it before, so I'll just move to trash. I'll move this to trash. I'll go back to my workspace. I have some things I've done in my workspace. So I'll go back here. Python transformations. Okay, this is it here. It's still the same data, right? The same one. So I'll run this again. Okay, cool. I'll do the same cleaning all over again. But this time around, I don't need to now start. I don't need to start importing Spark, PySpark, because I'm already inside of Azure Databricks environment. So it's actually built on PySpark. So I don't need to start importing PySpark. I'll just do the data type. I'll fix the data type, right? Okay. So I also drop the unwanted columns also, right? So I'll check the schema, the same thing we did the other time, right? And also rename some columns. I'll change the pie flavor tree to pie flavor. The same thing we did the other time in Jupyter Notebook. I'll run this, right? I'll also do what? I'll also run this, right? All the same things we did, all the same data transformation we did the other time. I'm just repeating it all over again. So you see that actually what I did in my Jupyter Notebook, I can also do the same thing in my Azure Databricks, right? Also filter for. I'm still using Python programming language right now. Shift enter. So I want to filter for. Okay, I thought it was okay. That's just okay. Cool. And I'll do the aggregate, right? The group by. So just give me an aggregate of what the pie product against the amount sold. Okay, cool. Schema. So another thing again is that it also created a temp table for me. What I mean by temp table, it means that I can actually write SQL code or other programming language. Also, yes, I can also write SQL. Remember, I'm in a Python environment because this is Python over here. So if I want to write SQL, so what it has done for me, it has created a temp table. So the name of the temp table is called what? Big underscore data underscore CSV. So that's just created a temporary table for me. So if I want to now write a SQL, that's SQL, I'll just put the percentage, I'll say percentage SQL. Okay, let's say I want to get select all from what? The temp table, which is what? Big underscore data. Select all. If I'm used to writing SQL, select all from what's the name of the table? Big underscore data SQL. I run this. Right, so it's going to give me all the. Okay, so okay, I was meant to run this for. Sorry, I'll run it. Yeah, I'll run the temp table. I will now run this also. So yeah, okay, this has given me the table I wanted, right? So I have the other number. I think I'll try to fix the other date before the end of today. I don't know why it's giving me error right now. Country, pie flavor, quantity, price, amount sold, slicer, right? And I can say, okay, let's say I want to get the aggregate, the same aggregate we've been doing since. Let's say, okay, select pie flavor, that's the first column, and also to get the sum of the amount sold. So the output name should be what? As what? Amount sold. From what table? My table is what? My big data underscore CSV. I'll now group by. Group by basically I'm trying to aggregate, right? So I'll group by what? Pie flavor, which is I'll make that as my index. I'll now order by what? Amount sold in descending order. I can actually change this pie flavor to 1. But it's column 1. I can say group by column 1, order by column 2. So column 2 is going to be my amount sold, while column 1 is my words, my pipe flavor in this. I think this should work. So let me run this first of all. Okay, yeah, I think it worked. Yeah, it worked. Let's see. Yeah, it worked. Okay, so you can see, right? What I basically, I say I group by what? One still represent the same thing as what? Pipe flavor, order by amount sold, right? This just give me just that's grouped it for me and that's giving me the amount sold. Okay, that's in descending order. That's from top to bottom, right? Also, you can also do your filter. The way we use filter using PySpark, you can also use filter using SQL. And the filter for SQL is called where. So use the where clause, right? I said what? Select pipe flavor, the aggregate again, sum of what amount sold. Give me the output, the column name as what amount sold from the data table. I said where pipe flavor is what apple or pipe flavor is what from. So two different fruits is either apple or fruit, right? So the concept of the or statement and the and statement is that if they're in the same column, you're looking for a categorical data and they're in the same column, either apple or cherry, either apple or blueberry. If they are in the same column, use an or statement. If I'm looking for I'm looking for apple and all the amount so to be greater than 10,000. So to be what? First column, which is pizza sold, should be what? Apple. I'll say pizza and pie flavor must be equal to apple and amount sold must be greater than 10,000 or something. So that's how it works. That's the logic behind that. When I've done the where clause, you now do the group by. So I did the group by and also order by. So I'll run this. Right? Okay, awesome. So this was giving me this. It's telling me, okay, this is what it's actually doing, right? With the registration, it has actually given me a temp value. So this is how you do all what I did in PySpark, right? So now the big thing now for today is okay. I have two data now. Let's now go to the. Let me show you something now. So this is what I was trying to achieve now for this section now. I said I want to use the Azure block storage. I also want to use what Azure Data Lake Gen 2, right? So let's assume now. Let's do an imagination now. Imagine like one of you guys now. You're the data analyst of your, data engineer of your company, right? And you're trying to migrate your data from your Azure block storage to Azure Data Lake Gen 2. And the data analysts and the data scientists, which are the end users, they want to connect to your Azure Data Lake Gen 2. And I tell you that, okay, Andrew, what should you do for me is that just give me a summarized version of the data. The data might be big. I don't want a big data. Just give me a summary of the data. What I mean by that is that give me a group by of the data. So I'll show what I'm trying to achieve using Power Query. I'll now do the same thing using Azure Block Storage. That's what I'm trying to achieve. So let me open my Excel for you, first of all. I'll just open a random Excel. I think I have like 15 more minutes. Okay. I'll go to my data. I'll get data from Excel. So it's what I'm trying to achieve now, right? So I'm going to go to my documents, my Python script, PySpark, data set. Can I see all data? All the data. Let's say so I have two data now. I have sales data and I get data. So I say sales data now. Import, right? Because what I'm going to do now. You saw the transformation I'm going to do now. I'll say, okay, this is my sales data, right? I want to transform. That's how to clean it, right? Okay, so you can see this here, right? So what the data analyst and the data scientists are requesting for, they say that Andrew, give me only the pizza sold, the aggregate against the amount sold. So they only want to see two columns that should be populated in the way in my data lake Gen 2. They're not interested in entire data. They only want to see a summary of the report, which is what pizza against amount sold. And if you look at this data here, right, I have pizza sold, I also have price and quantity and discount, but I don't have what amount sold. What I have to do now is I have to create another column, right? I'll say add column, custom column, right? I'll say, okay, this should be what amount sold, right? I'll say, okay, I'll come here, I'll say price insert times quantity insert times open bracket 1 minus sales discount insert close my bracket enter, right? Cool. I'll change this one here to what decimal because it has a decimal in it. I want to down to aggregate, so I want to do the group by. So I'm not sure how to do the group by in Power Query. So I'll say okay, I want to group by That's my index is pizza sold. The name should be what? Products, right? How to get the sum against what? Amount sold, right? Okay. And that's what I just want. Sales data. I'll do another one again for the sales target also. You know what I'm going to achieve now. Sales targets. So where's my sales targets? Sales targets. Yes. Okay. Import, right? So I'm still the Power Query environment, right? So I'm doing my transformation. I'll just show you what I'm actually trying to achieve in Spark. So I'll fill down. Just fill down. I'll fill down here. I'll fill down. Oh, sorry. I'll fill down. Fill down, right? So if you look at this data here, right? I have the individual products in what as a column header. You can see barbecue chicken, barbecue Philly steak, beef cheddar, all what? A column header. So I have to unpivot this data. So I'll select all the products. I'll start from barbecue chicken. I'll press shift. I'll scroll to the last, which is Virgin Supreme. I'll right click. I'll say what? On pivot columns, right? And I don't need these two columns, which is what? Column 20 and UrBizEdge. I'll delete these two here, right? So it's showing what? Attributes and value. I'll rename this to what? Products. Also rename this to what? Amount sold, right? Sorry. Amount sold, right? So now I have the two columns. I can now do my group by. I can say, okay, group by products, target, let's say target underscore products. What is the operation? I want it to be a sum against what? Amount sold, right? And that's all. You can see, right? So I have the two columns, which is my sales target and my sales data. So now this is how the data analysts and data scientists want me to put the data in my data lake Gen 2. I remember the way the data was gotten was gotten like this. That's how the data was gotten. So I have to do all the transformation inside of what? My Azure Databricks, right? So that's what I'm going to do now. So let me just close and load. So it's going to load into two different tables. So I basically done all the transformation now in Excel. So I'm not sure this is how you can do it in Power Query. This is what I'm actually trying to achieve in Power Query, right? So let me now go to my Azure Databricks. So the first thing I need to do, I need to first of all mount my Azure blob storage, and also I need to mount my Azure data lake Gen 2. So I'll go to my workbook. I'll go to my migration. I actually have another file called configuration file here. Okay. So these are some of the things I will still need to blur this part out when I'm doing the video. So for your configuration, you need your application ID, you need your service credential, you need your directory ID, right? So for your application ID, right, these are the things you have to get when you're creating your blob storage. So I'll drop a link on how to go about it. It's actually in the GitHub repo. I sent the link on how to mount um Azure Data Lake on Azure Databricks. I'm actually missing too much of Azure data. Okay, so this is your my application ID, my secret key, and also my tenant directory, right? So I need to run this first of all, right? Okay, I think I've mounted it before. So yeah, let me first unmount so you see what I'm trying to achieve. Okay, let me unmount first of all. Let me unmount the clean data. Let me first unmount this. Press unmount. Okay, it's running. Just give it a couple of minutes. Because I've mounted it before, so if I run it, it won't give me anything. I want to show you what I'm actually trying to achieve right now. Okay, so you have unmounted, right? So the first thing you need to do, you have to put your application ID, your secret key, and also your tenant directory. You run this, right? Okay, so this just gives you the help. Okay, these are the different things. If you need help in the db.utility, right? These are the different things it's going to give. Okay, this is what you can do with your blob storage. So let me just comment this out again. So now what I want to do now, to mount the source. So the source is showing me what the file directory is what clean data. So let me show you what I'm trying to do now. If I go to my Azure portal, if I go to my data lake Gen 2, so I'll go to my browse storage. So for my browse storage, I'll go to my blob container. So for my blob container, I should have something called clean file, right? So I'm trying to mount this clean file, this folder directory inside of my Azure Databricks. So that's why I see what the name of the file is called what? Clean file. The name of the this what I call it, Azure Data Lake is called what? If you see the name, it's called what? ADF Data Lake UrBizEdge, right? That's the storage name itself. So that's what I actually added here, right? So and the mount point is called, this is the mount point I've given called clean2. So if I run this, right? So I'm trying to mount this. Okay. So it'll take a little bit of minutes. So after I've mounted the data lake jet. So I also mount what they call the blob storage also. So while this is running, I also run the file. If I open this now, you shouldn't see anything. So you can see this clean file. If I run this clean file, if I open this clean file, you see that it's empty. So you can see that, okay, I've not deleted. Let me delete this too. It's meant to be empty. I'm meant to have it empty there. I think it was when I was testing it before. Okay, yeah. So now if I run this, it should give me empty, it should be empty. Yeah. So this is empty, right? So now let me now mount, I also mount the blob storage also now. So you can mount blob storage in two ways, using the account key, also using the SAP key. But for the next one, I'll show you how to use the account key to do this. The same way too we did it, right? The file, the folder I'm looking for is called raw sample. The directory is called this here, right? So if I come to my Azure portal, if I go to my blob storage also, this is my blob storage here also, right? So for my blob storage, I'll go to my browse storage, I'll go to my blob container. So for my blob container, I can see this is my raw sample here, right? If I put my raw sample, this is my raw sample. So I'm going to have two files, which is my sales target and my sales data, right? So you can see that this is the name here, right? ADF, right? If I come here now, you see that it's showing what? Sorry. It's showing ADF storage and the raw sample. So this is just basically. So you can see this is my secret key, my access key. To get this, like I also come and search for access key, this access key over here, right? So for this access key, you can see this access key. You can just click on show and you just copy the access key, that's all. And you paste it. So that's what I pasted here. So you just need to just run this, right? So let me just run this. I'll run this. Okay, cool. And I'll run this to see. Wow. So you can see that the two files now are there, right? Okay, so we already mounted the two storage, which is I mounted my blob storage, and I've also mounted my data lake gen 2. So what I have to do, I have to now start the ETL process now, the extract, transform, and load inside of my Azure Databricks. So what I'll do, I'll there's another workbook I've created also here, which is called where's the migration here? I think this one here. Okay. So let me scroll down. So this is it, right? So the first one now is my sales data. So remember, what I basically did here now is I just uploaded my blob storage, my blob container, my raw sample. So the thing I just did here is that those two, these two files I got online, which I just did with Excel the other time. The two raw file I did that time that was looking very messed up. What I mean by that, if I open this now, let's look at the sales data. Now if I open the sales data, right? If I say edit, where's edit over here? Okay, edit or view, right? So if I say preview, it's taking time, refresh. Okay, so look at the data now, right? I have my dates. Like the way it was, the same thing I did with Power Query, that I cleaned the data, I did the multiplication for price times quantity times open bracket 1 minus discounts. I now did the aggregate. I'll do the same process this time around, but I'll do it inside of Azure Databricks, right? Without using SQL or any other program language. So what I'll do now is, I see that's for the sales data. This is the target data. I've uploaded what? Both the sales data and the sales target inside of my blob storage. I'll now do the entire ETL process. When I clean the data, I'll now send the data to my what? Data Lake Gen 2, all from Azure this thing, Databricks. So I'll go to my Azure Databricks. So I've written the entire code of what I want to do here, right? So I'll read the data, which is that's my mount point here, right? Sales data. I'll do the transformation and the cleaning. You can see everything step by step. I've gotten the aggregates. I've also gotten another aggregate because I'm actually way behind time. I've gotten the two aggregates. So for the target data, to also do the transformation also. I also did on pivot, also on pivot the column itself, right? I dropped some unwanted column. Remember, I deleted two columns when I was doing it on Power Query. The same thing, I also dropped the columns here, right? And these are the column names. These are the different columns. I also changed all the columns header. And I did what they call pivots. So I converted all the columns that were barbecue chicken. I converted everything to what a single column. So what I did there, when I finished that, I named that was product with what amount and with what target amount sold, right? So these are all the things I'm going to do now. And at the ending, I'll now load, I'll get my aggregates. After I got, I'll now load the data inside my data lake gen 2, both sales data and sales target. So let me just run everything. So I'll show what I'm going to do. So I'll click on run all. So this is going to run everything for me now. So let's just wait. Let's see what's going to happen. So it's loading. So I'll go to my data lake gen 2, right? It's still loading. Okay. So now if I go to my blob storage, my container, right? If I open my clean file, and you see now the two files should be there now. Voila. I think just came in now. You can see. Like say edit now. Okay, it created a folder. If I open this folder, I see the file just entered. Now I can see what's the time now. This 16:58 and this 16:58. You can see that it just entered right now. So it actually sends different one, but this is the file I'm actually looking for here, the CSV file. So if I open this now, if I say view, right, you can see now. Consider what it's giving me. This is the format I said I wanted, right? Pizza sold and some. If I download this data here, so let me download the first one. Okay. So if I open it now in my Excel, this is an Excel to open it, right? I can see these are data formats came out, right? So because of time, I was actually going to show you how to also activate this process using um, Azure Data Azure Data Factory. But because of time, I'm actually way beyond time. So let me check. I'm seeing some questions. Okay, just wait. So for CSV in blob storage, okay, I'll answer everybody's question. Just give me a minute. So for this other one now, if I go to that's for the sales. If I go to my sales target also, right? This is also the file also here, right? If I open the file, if I say edit, it has done all the transformation for me and has populated it what inside of my what inside of my what do you call it now, my data lake gen, so without me stressing myself. So this is the entire data and I can download it. This one is for my sales target also, my sales target data. It has done the whole transformation. It have aggregated it everything right inside the code. I don't need to stress myself to start writing code one after the other. I can see both of them. I can see voila. So that's just all. Let me change one to number first of all. Show me something. Okay. I can see so cool, so fast. Like you have to stress yourself doing too much of work. I've done all the transformation, all the clean, everything. So that's how the ETL process works. So another thing I want to do now is let me delete this too. I want to show you something else again. As if time permits me, I think I can still spare like 15 more minutes. I'll delete this too. So this time around, I'll go to my Azure Data Factory. So I'll run the entire ETL process for my Azure Data Factory. So I'll launch my Azure Data Factory now. All right. Okay. So this comment. The advantage of using Azure Data Factory is that I can always schedule a time for the thing to trigger. I can always set a schedule trigger. So while this one is loading, let me check for questions. So yeah, the video will be made available. Please. Okay, yeah, the video made available. How do you get CSV inside your blob storage? Okay, Barry, to get CSV inside the blob storage now, while this one is loading, let me go to my storage container. That's my blob storage here, right? I'll go to my browse storage. I'll go to my blob container. So it's very easy. Okay, now this is the what's the name? I think it was raw sample. Yeah, raw sample. This was the dirty data, right? So just here you can see the upload here. Just click on upload, right? When you click on upload, you browse for the file you want to use. Go to the file directory you want to use. And the thing about Blockstack, you can actually accept any kind of data. It doesn't need to be structured data actually. So I can go to my Python script. I have different files actually. Let me just check for my PySpark, my data sets. I can use anyone. And let's say fake data. And that's loaded. I just click on upload. And it's going to upload successful, right? And that's all. You can see, right? I can see now the fake data is showing here. So this is the fake data. Let's see the fake data. If I open it, I say edit and view, right? Preview. So this is loading. When it comes up, yep, you can see this is the blob storage. So what I did, I took the raw data, I put inside the block storage, and I mounted the block storage to my Azure Data Factory, and I did the entire transformation process in my Azure Databricks. Sorry, I mounted the block storage in my Azure Databricks, and I did the entire ETL process, and I loaded the data back to my Azure Data Lake. That's the clean data into my Azure Data Lake. So I moved from two different storage. From blob storage, I transformed it and I migrated the data towards Azure Data Lake Gen 2. So let's check it. So okay, yeah, that's open. So let me show you how to activate the same process from um Azure Data Factory. Azure Data Factory is actually awesome. It's used for if you're not that do a lot of data migration transformation, it does the entire ETL process. So the first thing I need to do, I need to create a link. So I'll go to manage, I'll click on new. I'm looking for a link. So I'll go to compute because it's database, so it's a Databricks link. So I'll click on this, right? So this is loading. I'll say, let's say Databrick, let's say webinar, webinar breaks, right? So the subscription, I'm using my MCT. Okay. So the Databricks, that's this one here, right? It's asking for the workspace. This is the workspace. I'm not sure if this is the workspace. Okay. Okay, so actually there's a way you can get the Databricks workspace. You can just come here. But let's just test. So if to get the Databricks workspace, you can why is it not showing now? Okay. To get your Databricks workspace, you can go to your user here, right? Go to user settings. Actually, you can create a new token and anything you want to create, right? So let me go back to my let me come back here. So it's asking for the access token. I think I have the access token somewhere. Have I closed it? Oh, okay. I think I have to do it. I have to get the access token. So sorry about that. So I'll create a new access token. So it can last for 90 days. Let's say 10 days. I don't want something to just test it. Just test it. Right? I click on create. Okay, I've created. So I'll copy it, right? So now I've copied it because of I'll say done. So I'll go to my so I'll paste the access token here, right? So after I pasted, it's going to give me the cluster. It's asking for what cluster. Okay, it's loading. So I'll change this one to Python 3. I'm using Python 3. Okay, select cluster. I'll say let me use 11.3 something or 2 something. Is that 11.3? Let me so I'll use this one. Yeah, 11.3. Right? The node. I'll use the lowest version. That's D2. Okay, so let me test connection if it's going to work. The connection created. So I'll click on create. Okay, cool. So this is creating. So I've actually created a service link. That's a link service. So the link service is going to help me connect to my notebook. So I'll go to my author. So from author, I'll create a pipeline. This is an activity pipeline. So in ADF, that's Azure Data Factory, you can do the copy activity, you can do the transform activity using. So if you want to transfer the data, you can also use what they call data flow, or you can also use our query instead of Azure Data Factory. But for my pipeline, I'll also want to create a new pipeline. A new pipeline. So the pipeline, I'll create a Databricks pipeline. I'll drag a notebook here. Okay. So I just don't really waste much of time. So my data, the link service will be the one I was created. That's webinar link. Why my browse parts? I have to browse for the parts. So the notebook I want to use is the migration data notebook, which is the project here. Okay. So I think that's all. What I have to do now is to just trigger. I can do trigger now. I can set a schedule trigger. So let's just say trigger now. Pipeline is not okay. So I have first publish. I've not published. Sorry. First publish pipeline. Sorry about that. So publish is just basically like you're actually saving. So publishing means you're saving. Okay, it's taking time. Okay, yeah, publishing successful, right? So I can just click here. I can say, okay, can just trigger now. I can also use the book. Let's just say trigger now. Say, okay. So this will start the trigger process for me. This is running. It's running. It's running. Okay. So okay. So now this is running, right? Okay. If I want to know, I can monitor it. I can go to my monitor. I can check my trigger. It's meant to be in trigger. Okay, yeah, it's running, right? So this code pipeline. So I'll check it here, right? For me, I can also say, okay, let's check the details. So it's still loading. Okay, let me open this. So this open for me in my data break. It's going to take a little bit of time. So while this one finish load, it's going to copy the same data. It's going to do the entire transformation process. What is happening now? I'm triggering my data brick, not from data brick environment, but now from Azure Data Factory. So the advantage about using Azure Data Factory is that Azure Data Factory is very good for migrating data from different data sources, which you can migrate from different data source, which the data lake. I can also activate a trigger function from Azure Data Factory. That's one of the advantages. So it's still loading. When it finish loading, it will populate the data back inside of my Azure Data Lake Gen 2. So this is my data lake Gen 2. So by the end of when it's finished loading, you get to go to your browse storage, your blob container. So in this your print file, you should populate it inside here when it is done. For now, it is not file, but when it is done loading, to populate it there. So any question, any question. So I'm done. Any question, any question. If you have any question, you can raise your hands up, or you can put your question in your chat box. Any question? I'm actually done. I'm actually done because I have another section by 9. Any question? I guess everyone got it, right? Okay, so the recording for this session will also be made available. So let me open the YouTube channel. So I'll show you where you get the recording. So if I go to YouTube, so YouTube, you just go to UrBizEdge. So UrBizEdge. Okay. Okay, so the recording for this session will be made available here. So I had to rush. Yeah, yeah. So I've sent the link here. The link is already. I have to be like very fast because of the timing and everything. Because I have another session. And it was a lot of stuff I was trying to do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the thing is that if you know how to use PySpark, it's very easy. It's very easy. Just add the concept of PySpark. It's very, very easy to use. Very easy to use. And also, if you go through the GitHub repo I sent, right? I sent a GitHub repo, so you can use in the GitHub repo. I've dropped some materials. You can also use. You can also follow some community people, right? You can follow some community people in the community. So you can go to the GitHub repo here and just give it a star and just copy it, and you can see how to use it. So any question? Before we end the session, any question? Any question? Any question? Did I assume everyone has understood it? Omotunde, Michael has been here since the beginning. Thank you very much. Barry, thank you. Barry, sorry. Ken, Prom, okay. Murphy, okay. So I guess no question, right? So can I end the section? Okay, so I'll stop recording. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very